It has been some time since the Charlotte Hornets have seen any success in the NBA. They've actually been, more recently, one of the largest laughing stocks when it comes to being the worst teams consistently. And with the step down of Michael Jordan from the general manager position and owner position, the Charlotte Hornets are beginning to enter a new era where they are going to be forced to answer a lot of questions about this roster, especially about main star point guard LaMelo Ball, who, yes, has shown time and time again that he has the talent to play in the NBA, but he just cannot seem to stay healthy, much like his brother Lonzo Ball. LaMelo has consistently been riddled with injuries, and around him, this roster does not have a lot of talent. You have Brandon Miller, who has definitely showed a lot of promise, especially after being very ridiculed for being drafted over Scoot Henderson and returning with a vengeance in his rookie season, as Brandon Miller has shown time and time again that he can score and he can guard and he can do what this team needs to do outside of having LaMelo Ball. It's going to be interesting to see the two develop, but once you get past those guys, this roster is just full of questions rather than answers. You've got Mark Williams, as you see him on the board. Williams is a prolific rim protector and a good traditional big man, but he's still not exactly what you're looking for as far as the, stretch big goes. So do the Hornets want to go in that direction, or do we want to stick to a traditional size big man who can guard the rim, play defense, and get blocks and rebounds, all that we need him to do? That is a question that the Hornets will need to answer. They also are going to be seeing how this team can develop and whether they should move on with Miles Bridges after the controversy a year or so ago that got him in trouble. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a long rebuild and a long series where we need to take the Hornets from the bottom all the way to the top, and that begins with our first offseason here, trying to extend and improve this team's talent. And yet another playoffs come and go without the Hornets in it. The Mavericks are going to sweep the Celtics in the finals. Luka Doncic averaged an astounding 44 points per game in the playoffs. I mean, unheard of. But we are used to that from Luka. Let's go ahead and take a look at this roster because it has a lot of holes in it. Point guard, obviously, you've got LaMelo. He's your all-around type of guy. He can defend, he can shoot, he can play make, he can do about everything you want except for stay on the court. And right now he's on a very team-friendly contract. At least he was this past season. But next year, going into the next season, it's going to jump up to $35 million. Then it only gets larger from there. And at 22 years old, the former number 3 overall draft pick out of Chino Hills High School is going to have to answer some questions this upcoming season. I'm going to need at least one 70-year season from LaMelo Ball because it's been some time since we've seen LaMelo play that many games. As you can see, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. I don't know if they have the games played. Yeah, they do. Let's see. His rookie year, he started 31 games. He played 51, and then he was injured the rest of those games. His second year, he really improved. He played 75 games. Then in year 3, he only played 36, and in year 4, he was only able to play 22 games. So he has been steadily declining since that second year, sophomore season jump. And we're definitely going to need a lot more from LaMelo Ball. As you look at our point guard position, leaves a lot to be desired with Vasil Micic traded over from the OKC Thunder, who actually made a great trade to get Gordon Hayward. And I liked it for both sides. The Hornets were finally able to get rid of Gordon Hayward from this roster, a guy who's on a bigger contract, a guy who doesn't match the timeline. But Micic is 30 years old. He's a second-year guy. I'm going to keep him on the roster for now, but I really would like to see what Nick Smith Jr. can do. He's a good shooter. He's a 20-year-old former first-round pick 2 years ago now. This would be his second year coming up in this regular season. He's okay on defense, can't really guard too well, but he's got good speed. He's got good acceleration, and he's a good shooter. So I'm interested to see what Nick Smith Jr. can do. I'll probably be playing him or prioritizing his development over playing Micic. But if we somehow get into a situation where we need a veteran point guard, Micic will be that guy. Shooting guard position, we've got Trey Mann. We're definitely going to have to address this position. I don't particularly want Trey Mann or Cody Martin or Seth Curry being the starting shooting guard. Although Trey Mann is a good shooter, I'm definitely going to be keeping him on the roster. He doesn't really have that defensive side of things, he's all right, but he's not really all that great in his third year now out of Florida. Tre Mann is going to get some run. We might potentially see Tre Mann get some run at point guard. As you can see, he's not too bad as a point guard. He only goes down by 1 overall. Cody Martin, unfortunately, he's not the better brother. He is still okay, but he's just not Caleb Martin. He's an okay shooter. He's an okay defender. Not going to wow you, really. But he's under contract for 2 years on a bit of a tough contract. He's getting about $8 million a year, a little bit higher next year. Not a great contract considering he's only a 72 overall. Same thing with Seth Curry, who's getting $4 million this year for riding the bench at 33 years old. Nobody's really going to be interested in a trade, so maybe we can throw Seth Curry in to some random trade. But at the end of the day, I don't really think anybody's going to be interested in Seth Curry. Here's where we start to get really excited. Brandon Miller showed a ton of promise. A lot of people ridiculed the Hornets for taking Miller over Scoot Henderson. Everybody said, you know, you had Wemby, you had Scoot, and you had Brandon Miller. Everybody pretty much said it was Scoot and Wemby who were leagues ahead of Brandon Miller. And Miller improved and really impressed a lot of people in his rookie season, averaging 17 points per game, shooting pretty well from the field, about 45% from the field and 38% from three. Averaged 4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, about a steal a game. I'm pretty impressed with how poised the rookie out of Alabama was, and I'm excited to see what he can do coming into his second season. And after that, that is where the positives end at the small forward position. We have Davis Bertans. He is expiring. I think his contract is definitely up at this point. So he has a team option for $5 million. Maybe would accept it, probably not. But he has a team option. Bryce McGoins is here as our third string. He's 21 years old. He kind of fits the role that we want out of a backup small forward. He can shoot, but he can also get, you know, he can drive a little bit, and he can play a little bit of defense. Not that he's crazy good, but I do like where he's at, especially alongside a guy like Brandon Miller, who's already an above average, well, right at average perimeter defender there. At the power forward spot, we've got Miles Bridges. He is on an expiring deal. His contract is up, and I don't quite know what we're going to do with Miles Bridges. I think we've got to bring him back, whether that's to sign and trade or whether that's just to bring him back and keep him, because not a lot of free agents are going to want in Charlotte, and a lot of times the only thing you can do is keep the guy that you already have, and that's probably why we're going to end up re-signing Miles Bridges, but we're going to kick that can down the road as far as we can. Backing him up, we've got Grant Williams and JT Thor, two guys that I don't necessarily see being long-term pieces. Grant Williams came off of a great year in Boston, got a decent contract from the Mavericks, and just was not good for them, and he ended up getting shipped over here to Charlotte to rot away. JT Thor, former early second round pick. He's on a team option. I'll bring him back probably just because he's so young. Not that he's really gonna do a lot. He can shoot okay, and he can play a little bit of defense, but he's not really a well-refined player. But I wouldn't mind getting JT Thor and letting a guy like Grant Williams kind of mentor him and see if JT Thor can kind of go into that 3-and-D power forward type of role that Grant Williams plays. And center is probably our third best player. Well, not probably, definitely our third best player, with Mark Williams here at 22 years old out of Duke. Mark Williams, he can't shoot. He's not really going to bring you much on offense besides pick and rolls, but I like what he brings on defense. He's got a decent block. He's a great rebounder. This guy is a defensive anchor according to 2K. I really, really like what he brings. The same thing with Nick Richards. These guys are very similar players. Nick Richards is going to block, and he's going to get you rebounds and score in the paint. So I like those guys. The only problem is we don't necessarily have that stretch big. And will Aleksej Pokusevski turn into that at 22 years old, a 69 overall from Serbia, the former project for the Oklahoma City Thunder, got shipped here alongside Micic and I believe a pick or so with Gordon Hayward. Pokusevski has never really lived up to his hype. He was initially expected to be that type of, you know, project player that could potentially turn into a star, and he hasn't quite lived up to that yet, but I still think this guy has something left in the tank, and I do plan on bringing Pokusevski back for another season. We're definitely going to be picking up the option for Mark Williams, and that's where this roster stands right now. Not very impressive. They are not a good team, obviously. I mean, they finished pretty close to last in the Eastern Conference, but they are young. We've got some very good pieces at the top here. LaMelo, Brendan Miller, and Mark Williams. But we really have to see how exactly this team can fit together and whether or not LaMelo stays healthy. Because when LaMelo's healthy, this team is at minimum, I think, a borderline play-in tournament team. And we're just going to have to gauge and see how well LaMelo can play as far as, you know, staying on the court. And here's the retirements for the offseason. Kyle Lowry calls it quits. Al Horford, you're 77 overall still, bro. I don't think you're going to call it quits. Westbrook calls it quits. Sorry that he never could get that championship. The rest of these guys are willing to retire as well. Pretty much, most of them are pretty reasonable. Matthew Dellavedova calls it quits. Greg Popovich is trying to retire. I think Greg Pop will stick around and coach with Wemby for a couple more seasons, so I'm going to reverse that. And Westbrook gets inducted to the Hall of Fame. Westbrook and Kyle Lowry get their jerseys retired. So now we're going to, I don't think the Hornets have anybody yet. They have Bill Russell from the Mandate, and then also Bobby Phills, number 13, is retired as well. League meetings. Here's where we need to reject everything. The draft lottery is really where this is a big moment for... Do we even have our pick? I should check that because I don't know if the Hornets have their first round pick this season. If I can click on roster, can you view your picks? I think it's going to be protected, but we'll see. The first pick in the lottery, the Trailblazers are going to stand at 14. So after shipping off Damian Lillard, they have Golden State's pick, and they're going to be able to keep that at number 14. That's going to be an interesting decision. I wonder if they'll go for a bit of a big man, considering DeAndre Ayton has disappointed a little bit, and that Scoot Henderson is still trying to improve. They also have a very guard-heavy roster. The Kings get the 13th pick as they stand there at number 13 after failing to get into the lottery. The Mavericks, despite a deep playoff run and winning the championship, they will have the number 12 pick. I wonder if they'll look to trade that, as we see the Bulls now stand at number 11. Once again, another season of lottery, but not exactly high enough to make a big splash in the draft. And the difference with this draft this year is that there's nobody that is 100% the number 1 overall draft pick. This is a very talented draft, don't get me wrong, but it has a lot of pieces that maybe should go mid to late lottery. There's nobody out there really that is 100% going to be drafted and be a superstar if you take them number 1 overall. So it puts the team, whoever gets the number 1 overall pick, whoever gets 2, 3, those teams in a really tough position, because you could be very easily ridiculed for drafting somebody who doesn't end up being a star high overall and getting somebody just a couple picks behind them that is a superstar. This is a very, very tough draft as we see the Atlanta Hawks move into the top 4 with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray getting a potential top pick in the draft, as the Utah Jazz are projected to get number 9 in the picks, are going to stay with the Jazz. They have number 9. Interesting to see where that roster goes moving forward. The Grizzlies, after a injury-ridiculed season, they saw Gigi Jackson end up being an actually solid NBA player. Let's see where they stand here. They are going to stand at number 8, so Ja Morant and company will be getting a little bit of help there. They have had 16 lottery selections, but never had the number 1 overall pick. The Raptors at number 7 are going to move up, so I believe that means now the Hawks and Raptors are in the top 4. So only 2 spots remain, as the San Antonio Spurs are going to fall down to 7 despite having the worst record in the NBA last season, right outside of the Detroit Pistons and Washington Wizards. As we now have a chance, will we move up or will we be stuck at 6 and lose our pick? We move up. The Wizards get the 6th pick, and that means that we will move up into the top 4, I believe, as we see the Pistons, after an abysmal year, they just need to get healthy and let their stars play, like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and all of them. I'm also a big Marcus Sasser fan. That guy can straight up score. So I believe that means 3 of the top 4 are decided. The Hornets, the Hawks, and the Blazers. And who was the other team? I cannot remember what the other team was. It was the Hawks, Hornets, and Blazers now have a chance at the top 3 pick as the Hawks get number 4. The Blazers sit at number 3. Will they keep moving up? They will not. And that means we have a chance at one of the top 2 selections in the draft. Last year, we saw the Trailblazers with the 3rd overall pick select Scoot Henderson. So it is between the Toronto Raptors and the Charlotte Hornets. We have the best odds at the 2nd overall pick, and we move up to number 1. And the Charlotte Hornets are going to be selecting number 1 overall in this draft. What a move there. We get to keep our selection, thankfully, because we're in the lottery. And that means we will have the number 1 overall pick for the 2nd time in franchise history. I am very excited to see what prospect we can potentially get as... Please tell me it doesn't... Okay, I was going to say, I thought it was going to restart. That is very interesting. The staff signing Steve Clifford. He actually retired in real life. I think he moved into like a front office type role. So I'm going to get rid of him, and I'm going to bring in a guy that I think could be good for this team, but not on a long contract. I want Kevin Ollie here for 2 years as the newest head coach of the Charlotte Hornets. Is he going to be great? Probably not, but he's a 3-star offense, 3-star defense. I like what he can bring, and he's a little bit younger than Steve Clifford, so maybe he can, you know, kind of relate to the young team a little bit more. We're also going to bring in a perimeter defense coach as we now look at domestic scouts. I want to bring in some more scouts, a domestic and a foreign scout, as I will be personally making the draft classes that you guys see, as this guy's going to... Oh, we can't sign him for whatever reason. That'll be all right. We have our head coach, and we now are ready to move into the NBA draft. Here's what everybody's looking like. We're not really interested in point guard. They do have some good options. Kyle Boswell is there. Carlton Carrington. Isaiah Collier at 18 years old. This guy turns into a stud in this draft class. He is from USC, and this guy can shoot. He can score. He can play defense. Very, very good NBA player, but unfortunately, we're not really looking for a point guard at all. Robert Dillingham is also there at 19 years old. Bronny James is 18 still, and he actually ended up declaring for the draft, and we'll be interested to see where Bronny James ends up going. You've got some good shooting guards as well. Jalen Bridges, Matthew Cleveland, Devontae Davis, Justin Edwards is there. He's a good shooter from Kentucky. You also have Caleb Love out of transferred from North Carolina, ended up at Arizona. He is a good all-around guy, but he's definitely not going very high. And if you want to see all these statistics, definitely pause the video and look at those. Small forward, probably not. We're probably looking between shooting guard and power forward. Definitely looking between those 2 positions. I don't think any other position really makes sense for us. So let's go ahead and just look at the shooting guards. Stephon Castle is projected number 1 overall pretty much unanimously, so he's probably gonna be our pick. If I'm just being honest. We've got Reed Shepherd as well. He's a good 3-point shooter out of Kentucky, but he's definitely going later in the lottery. Dalton Connect is there. Justin Edwards. We'll also check out any small forward shooting guards. Cody Williams, Tijan Saloon from France. He's an interesting one to look at. Ron Holland is there. Anybody else? Melvin Ajinka is projected from 24 to 7, so he's got a wide range. And also at power forward, this is not a very strong draft class, as I said. There's going to be a lot of late first-round projections, as that is going to be all the people we look at. Let's go ahead and take a look. Stephon Castle is the fastest. He is also the most agile. He also has the highest vertical. He has the 2nd highest bench press. So let's see what they do with 15-foot jump shots. Stephon Castle led the... Well, he was tied with Reed Shepherd, I should say. Moving jump shots, Reed Shepherd actually edged out Stephon Castle. Standing college 3, Stephon Castle was last. Moving, he was last as well. Standing NBA 3, though, he was 2nd. Reed Shepherd is there as well. He's a good shooter. I'll give him that. And Stephon Castle is dead last in moving threes there from the NBA, which is probably the biggest worry with Stephon Castle. Cody Williams is the fastest. He's also a very good three-point shooter, but he was not able to beat out Melvin Ajinka. So, if possible, Melvin Ajinka might be one of those guys we move back in the draft with a different trade in order to select them. And here's where the power forwards look. Tyler Smith is a lights-out shooter at that power forward position at 6'11". I like what that guy has, so don't be surprised if we make a move for him. And before we hop into this draft, let's take a look at the mock drafts. Let's see who all they predict us selecting. They predict us to selecting Alexander Sarr from France, the 7'1" center, and Wemby copycat, but not very good offensively, or not nearly as good offensively as Wembanyama. Definitely won't be going that way just because I like what we have at center right now. I will definitely be looking into drafting a big man maybe later in the draft, or picking one up out of free agency from anyone who goes undrafted. But I think it's time. No more, beating around the bush. No more talking. Let's get right into this. The Charlotte Hornets are stepping up to the podium in the 2024 NBA draft, and they have a chance to make history by selecting a potential star shooting guard, 6'6", out of Connecticut. Stephon Castle is the newest member of the Charlotte Hornets. He's rocking number 25 there, but we will definitely be changing that up, as he is potentially the best player available in this draft. It's generally between him and Alexander Sarr. Castle comes in at a 75 overall, 19 years old, and will potentially be the day one starter. Cannot shoot as well as many would hope. He brings a lot. He can drive to the rim. He's a good playmaker as well, and he is just a fast, quick defender at the shooting guard position. That is a good selection for the Charlotte Hornets. Next up, we have the Toronto Raptors, and with the second pick in the 2024 NBA draft, the Raptors are going to select Cody Williams, the 6'8" small forward out of Colorado, to pair him alongside power forward Scotty Barnes, who had an all-star season last year. I like that selection for the Raptors. Cody Williams is a 3-and-D guy. He can shoot it somewhat well, and at 19 years old, he has plenty of time to develop. Now we see the Trailblazers with the third overall pick. The Portland Trailblazers select Nikola Topic from Serbia, the 6'6" guard, and that is going to create a logjam at the guard positions. They have now Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson, and Nikola Topic. One of those guys, or potentially two of those guys, are going to have to come off the bench, which would be very, very detrimental to their development, in my opinion. At number 4, the Atlanta Hawks are selecting Tyler Smith. I wanted that guy, but I was not going to take him number 1 overall, but I still think he is a very, very good prospect. And coming out of the G League at night, Tyler Smith is potentially the strongest shooter out of the power forward position with an 84 3-ball, but don't overlook his defense and his rebounding. He can still do that at least an average or slightly above average level for a power forward. So the Hawks get a good power forward there to pair alongside Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and Clint Capella. Now as we go to number 5, the Pistons. One of the worst seasons in NBA history. They did bounce back after the terrible loss streak they had. But who are they going to select? The Pistons step up and select Donovan Clingan out of Connecticut, 5th overall, as that is their newest center, potentially making Jalen Duren's price tag expendable if they would like to move on from Duren, as we will now get into number 6, where we see Ron Holland go to the Wizards. I like that selection, but he is still very raw out of the G League Ignite. I think Ron Holland could pair well aside the other players they have, but he's definitely not the strongest shooter, as the Spurs will pick up their point guard of the future, Robert Dillingham, 72 overall, 19 years old. But Robert Dillingham is a very, very strong prospect, especially when paired alongside Victor Wembanyama. You have to pick your poison with him. Do you want to guard Wemby, or do you want to guard the point guard who has an 86 3-ball, who can also pass the ball right along with the best point guards in the NBA? As we're going to round out the top 8 with the Grizzlies selecting. They are potentially making a trade The Memphis Grizzlies are looking to trade away their first-round pick, the 8th overall pick, and Derrick Rose to the Atlanta Hawks for Jalen Johnson and Clint Capella. What a trade. The Hawks move back up into the top 8, and they are selecting Alexander Sarr. So the Atlanta Hawks make some big moves. First of all, they select Tyler Smith, get rid of Capella, and take Alexander Sarr. So now they have a completely new front court there in Atlanta. What do you Hawks fans think about those moves? I'm interested to hear, as I'm just going to now. After going through the top 10, we see the Jazz select Saloon from France. The Houston Rockets select Carlton Carrington to be the successor to Fred VanVleet, as we're going to skip ahead now. We do have some trade offers for this second-round pick, but I'm going to ignore most of those for now, and I'm just going to go best player available most likely. We have some options here. Do we go for a proven guy, maybe an older veteran? Alexander Samardžić from Greece is 19 years old, but he can't really do too much. I don't really want another pass-first big. I think Kyle Boswell is potentially our best option there. We did need another point guard, depending on what happens with Micic. And that is the draft. Here's everybody that went after the top 10. Zachary Rasacher went to the Bulls. Melvin Ajinko went to the Mavericks. Adem Bona. Let's see who else got selected. Bronny James goes 16th to the Pelicans. We'll have to see where LeBron ends up. Reed Shepherd falls down to 18. I'm interested to see how his career goes, as we definitely did not get the absolute best player in the draft. That would be Ron Holland overall wise, but Ron Holland is still a worse shooter than Stephon Castle, and Alexander Sarr is a good prospect, but I didn't think we really needed a center there. As we can see, Mark Mitchell all the way down here at the bottom of the draft is a 71 overall, so he's definitely looking to be a steal for the team that drafted him, as we now have a chance to bring in both of our rookies. We're definitely going to sign both of them, and we will get into free agency next episode. I didn't want to make this episode too long. It's already right around 30-ish minutes, so next episode we'll get into free agency, getting this team changed a little bit. And then the third episode will be the season premiere of this new and improved Charlotte Hornets team, with maybe even a surprise rebranding to get this new era of the Charlotte Hornets kicked off. Thank you all for joining me on this first episode. I hope everybody's having a great day. Hit the like button if you did enjoy, and I'll catch you all next time.